Hello, Internet! And here we are with Zelda's first 3D entry. Clearly it made a clean transition, being one of the most critically acclaimed games of all time. So let's see where I stand with this N64 classic. The game starts with a young Link in Kokiri Forest who needs to find the Great Deku Tree. However, this little brat Mido won't let you get through unless you have a sword and shield. Now you get a chance to explore the forest and get used to Ocarina of Time's control scheme, which is pretty necessary if you're used to the 2D games. Link auto-jumps when he goes off a ledge, so the A button is used for a multitude of context-sensitive purposes. The UI shows exactly what the A button can do in each type of situation to help out with this. Eventually, you find enough rupees to purchase a shield, and obtain the legendary Kokiri sword, so Mido has no excuse not to let you through. On the way to the Great Deku Tree, you encounter your first enemies. Now, the camera controls a little differently compared to Mario 64. By pressing Z, the camera shifts to face the same direction Link is facing. And if you use it near an enemy, it gets targeted, so you can focus on the enemy to attack it. The withered Deku Babas are a great way to practice this combat style before entering the first dungeon. Said first dungeon is the inside of the Great Deku Tree, which makes use of the vertical potential of the 3D space. Link needs to climb up vines and break through webs on the floor to move on to the next level. You also get the slingshot in this dungeon, which gets a lot of use. Once Link breaks into the lower level, you start to see the classic block puzzles, as well as other logic-based puzzles. This all culminates with the final boss, Goma. This boss crawls on the ceiling, so you need to look up and pay attention to where she is. It's easy to figure out that her weakness is her eyes, so Link can shoot it with a slingshot and then slash at it with the sword. Eventually, she goes down, and Link exits the Deku Tree. Unfortunately, he doesn't have much time left thanks to Goma, but he is able to give some exposition. Long ago, 3 golden goddesses, Nairu, Din, and Farore, came down and created the land of Hyrule, and sealed their powers in a mystical artifact called the Triforce, which resides in the Sacred Realm. However, it's in danger of being stolen by a Gerudo man named Ganondorf. If Link wants to stop him, he has to use the 3 sacred stones and open the Temple of Time in Hyrule Castle Town. With the Kokiri Emerald in hand, Link is ready to leave the forest. But before he leaves, he's stopped by his best friend Saria. You could argue that Saria and the rest of the Kokiri are kind of shallow, but I never really felt that way. Anyway, she gives you an ocarina to remember her, albeit not the titular Ocarina of Time. Link finally leaves Kokiri Forest and makes his way to the vast Hyrule Field. To be honest, I kinda have a few problems with this place. It feels really cool to explore this big open world, for about 15 seconds until you realize that there's nothing for you to do but walk around. It's basically an oversized hub world that's a pain to navigate around. There's also a day-night cycle, and the Castle Town closes at night, so unless you want to wait until day, you have to book it to Castle Town as soon as possible. Once you get into Castle Town, it also doesn't look too great. The town is pre-rendered, meaning you can't change the camera angle at will. Now, Final Fantasy VII did something similar, but it was at least consistent with the entire overworld being pre-rendered. But this is the only place in Ocarina of Time that looks like this, and it sticks out like a sore thumb. The castle itself is thankfully fully rendered in 3D, and you have to sneak past the guards to get there. Once you get past the castle walls, the camera is fixed, kinda like Metal Gear Solid. Which when combined with the Final Fantasy VII looking Castle Town makes me wonder if Nintendo was trying to one-up the PS1 with this game. Anyway, once Link gets past the guards, he finally meets Princess Zelda. She reinforces what the Deku Tree already told Link, and her bodyguard Impa teaches Link the first song on the ocarina, Zelda's Lullaby, after which she sends Link on his way. There are 2 more areas with dungeons you need to reach. The Gorons need Dodongo's cavern cleared out so they can eat the rocks there, and the Zora Princess Ruto is trapped inside of Lord Jabu Jabu. The dungeons are still well designed, thankfully. Dodongo's cavern lets you practice with Bomb 2 flowers before giving you bombs that you can place everywhere, and Lord Jabu Jabu introduces the boomerang as well as an escort mission for Princess Ruto. Once Link collects all 3 spiritual stones, he heads back to Castle Town where the temple is, only to find Princess Zelda and Impa being chased out by Ganondorf on horseback. Link at this time is no match for Ganondorf's power, but once the smoke clears, he finds that Zelda has gifted him the titular Ocarina of Time. He dashes his way through Castle Town, enters the Temple of Time, and plays the Song of Time as the spiritual stones reveal the way to the Master Sword. Link pulls it out as light envelops the room, only to reveal that the Master Sword was the only seal left keeping Ganondorf from accessing the Sacred Realm. Link wakes up after a 7-year magic coma in said Sacred Realm, where the sage Roru explains that with the power of all the sages, Link still can defeat Ganondorf. But before Link can leave, he meets Sheik. The lone survivor of the Sheikah tribe that Impa was a part of, Sheikah guides Link to the temples where the sages await him. Once Link steps out of the Temple of Time, he sees that darkness looms over Castle Town. The citizens are gone and replaced with hideous zombies that grab onto Link and scream. Then he comes back to Hyrule Field and it looks completely normal. Personally, I think the areas of Hyrule being in various levels of corruption is a really cool idea, and it makes it more fascinating than if the entire map was completely under Ganondorf's control. I don't know, it kinda reminds me of Mother 1 and 2. Link's sudden aging up and the player's familiarity with Hyrule also helps with this. Time travel is definitely more important than it is to the actual gameplay. Anyway, the first 3 temples are in the same areas as the Young Link dungeons. The Forest Temple in Kokiri Forest introduces the Fairy Bow, the Fire Temple in Death Mountain introduces the Megaton Hammer, and the Ice Cavern introduces the Blue Fire. And then there's the Water Temple. Oh, the Water Temple. Raising and lowering the water level is a decent enough concept for a dungeon, but it gets so repetitive because the switches are in the stupidest places. The enemies are annoying to deal with and they don't even have interesting designs, and you need to go into the menu to equip and unequip the iron boots way too many times. Oh, and the mini-boss is Shadow Link. Don't mind me, just preparing for the inevitable. Moving on, the Shadow Temple makes use of the Lens of Truth and... whoa! And I thought Super Mario 64 could be unsettling at times. And finally, the Spirit Temple gives you an update in the form of the Mirror Shield. Once Link has found all the sages, Sheik is revealed to be Princess Zelda in disguise. Unfortunately, she is then promptly kidnapped by Ganondorf, so Link has to save her from the corrupted Hyrule Castle. First, you have to break the castle shield with the help of the sages, then climb the central tower and fight monsters, and then fight Ganondorf at the top of the tower. The fight is literally tennis with no Z targeting, kind of a disappointment. With Ganondorf defeated and Zelda freed, the tower begins to collapse and Link and Zelda have to escape within a certain time limit. What is this, Metroid? Link and Zelda eventually escape the castle, but Ganondorf isn't done, transforming into the giant beast known as Ganon. You can't use the Master Sword in this part of the fight, but you have other options. Once Link hits Ganon in the tail enough times, he retrieves the Master Sword and delivers the finishing blow, and the sages banish Ganondorf to the Sacred Realm forever. Princess Zelda plays the Ocarina of Time to take Link back to the past, and the two reunite one last time as kids, fixing the timeline and ending the game. In my opinion, Ocarina of Time is a pretty good Zelda game, but it isn't without flaws. Ah, what the... Hey, wait a minute. Pick it up. Pick it up. Coward.